this morning is about 1961 for reasons which will become apparent in a short. Exactly 5 years ago, you see from the date on the top there, 23rd to 25th of February 2018, the Elders Company did a series of performances on a program called Moments That Changed Our World. As a preamble to it, we had to bring an object which meant something about our past, and then we had to write story, all the rest of it about whatever we were going to talk about eventually. And I chose something which was about 1961 for reasons which I'll explain later. But as a preamble, I wrote this poem called 1961, imaginatively enough. And I did a radio program this week with Val on Wednesday, and I used this poem as part of the program. So I thought, well, I'll kill two birds with one stone. And so here we go. So I've broken the poem up. So shall we proceed?
Yeah.
So begin the first couple of verses. In 1947, the year of baby boom, I first appeared upon this earth in rationing and gloom. Buildings all were sooty black, some pockmarked from the war. 52 a classroom pushed up against the door. Okay, so I've got some image to represent that. 1947, the winter was probably one of the worst on record. Bernard, Jackie and I came along within a few weeks of each other, but we would have come in at the tail end of this terrible winter, so don't remember much about it, I have to confess, but there you go, that's how it was. The buildings all were sooty black. This was Manchester Town Hall. You probably remember that before the Clean Air Acts, everything, not just in Manchester, but in any industrial area, city, town, there was heavy black soot covering all the buildings. Manchester's so different with the, I mean, it looks completely different now because you can't see it, but I mean, this sort of covering of, I think it was only removed in the probably the 70s, wasn't it? But and a lot of the old buildings were cleaned up then, but that's how they all look. So
is that picture taken in 61, Graham?
It's taken in 1947. There's me.
Oh, good for hair.
You haven't changed a bit, Gray.
No, there's a good likeness there.
Amnesty International arrived 28th of May 1961, formed in London. Peter Benenson, I think, was the guy who started it. And it was about protecting human rights, prisoners of conscience, miscarriage of justice and victims and use of torture. So, and it's still going. Of course, the Iron Curtain fell. Iron Curtain was a phrase coined by Winston Churchill, but it actually happened at the end of the Second World War. But in 1961, of course, they built the Berlin Wall. I went to Berlin a few years ago, and I don't think I'd ever realized how far east Berlin is in terms of West Berlin. Must have been extremely isolated because it was surrounded completely by East Germany. So, and this is, it shows a lot. You've got this, the white suits, colonial policemen, and these sort of Africans. I presume this is just a protest, but it clearly shows the problems, from one black and white photograph, basically.
That's a terrific photograph, isn't it? Really.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, and then of course in America as well as in South Africa, there was apartheid. Civil rights moved to center stage. Civil rights movement was So it was at its peak in 1961, but it was becoming more and more powerful, more and more effective anyway. Still has a long way to go, of course, but nevertheless, you know, the protests were beginning to become more powerful. Especially this was one taken in 1961, March. I don't know where it was exactly. I can't remember. Sorry. I don't think it's a march on Washington. I think that was later. But the Beatles first played the Cavern, and Barbie finally got her Ken.
Oh,
Spurs won the League Cup double, and they're still waiting to again. The Allisons came second in glorious Eurovision, and the old white fibre disappeared. There were accents on television. Yuri Gagarin came to Manchester, Mank, a tumultuous reception. Another Russian, Nuria, to the west, made his defection. Okay, there's the Beatles. It's a nice picture of the Beatles. Paul McCartney looked about 12 on this, doesn't he? It's probably pre-Ringo, I would think. This would be, what was the name of the drummer?
Stuart. Oh no.
Yeah. John Lennon's very recognisable. George Harrison's in shadow, but I just like this kind of gormless look of Paul McCartney.
He always looked gormless anyway.
Christine, I was madly in love with him for about 5 years.
Sorry.
I think it's just I don't know how old it would be, perhaps about 18 or something. I don't know. Anyway, unless, of course, would have been the real Cavern, the original Cavern, not the one that's there now. You know, Barbie got her Ken. Awful, wasn't it? Really? Spurs, who won the cup and the league in the first division in those days.
Danny Blanchflower.
There's Danny Blanchflower, yes. And there's the Allisons. Anybody remember? Are you sure?
I do, yeah.
It only came second in the Eurovision. It didn't win, but it was very popular. The Allisons, I think, disappeared almost as fast as they arrived, but I don't remember anything much afterwards. I did actually see them in those days. They used to have sort of concerts with several people, you know, like I think Helen Shapiro was on the bill and Joe Brown. I'm thinking they used to have like 5 or 6 all together, all for 12 and 6 or something, or whatever it was. And the Apollo. Oh yeah, the old white 5-pound note disappeared. See how big it is compared to a new one. It's kind of
I don't remember it at all.
Don't you?
No.
No, I don't really.
Remember the white note?
Oh, I remember it, but I didn't see them that often. But
Probably had no money.
but it's at least 3 times bigger than the ordinary. Used to fold them up into quarters. There's Yuri Gagarin.
That was 61 too, wasn't it?
This was in 1961. Yeah, 12th of July, 1961, and it was organised. His visit was organised by the Amalgamated Union of Foundry Workers. He was invited to come to Manchester by this trade union, and the streets were absolutely thronged.
Absolutely.
I got half a day off school to go into town to see it. And this is the background here is the extension to the annex to the town hall in Mount Street or whatever it is, which is where we stood. So I got a really good view of him, and it was terrific. And it started off in Brooks Bar, I think it was. Not Brooks
Yeah, that's
Bar.
right. There was
Bar, yeah, where
there was a trade
offices-
union. There was a trade union headquarter was next to the cinema.
Yeah. Anyway, here's another Russian, Rudolf Nureyev, defected to the West in 1960. He did it in Paris actually, but he settled in London. I used to share a flat with a guy who worked at Covent Garden, and Rudolf Nureyev was notoriously mean and tight-fisted, and this guy was a tailor, and he worked at Covent Garden, but on the QT he used to make Nureyev's practice garments for the clothing, you know, his dance practice clothing on the cheap. So he did actually, I never actually met him, but he came round to the flat we share a couple of times to get measured up. And Alan always made him have a bath because he stank. Before he fitted him up, he made sure he was clean. There you go. Bit of gossip for you. Summer in theatre, the outlook much more sunny. Out went Noel Coward and in came and Taste of Honey. I read, I watched, I listened, devoured all that I could. I travelled outside Britain, the future looked quite good. I have a silver medal, my name and date thereon. It simply proves that I was there in 1961. There's the medal, Bellevue Youth Festival.
Bellevue.
March 1961, I played the E-flat horn
Right.
in the King's Hall in Bellevue, and there's a Taste of Honey. That's not me, I'm not in that one, but that's how it was. That was kind of like, I don't think there was quite as many people watching us. But nevertheless, we were up there. Then that was the old boxing ring in the King's Hall.
Yeah.
Sensor, but there you go. Another interesting fact: this is a film, 1961, called Victim, which was one of the first films to depict a homosexual. Actually, admitting that this is Dirk Bogart playing a gay solicitor who was being blackmailed. This is his wife, who's the beautiful Sylvia Sims, who passed away a few weeks ago, actually. But that's Dirk Bogart. But it was a bit of a landmark in cinema. It was, but it's supposed to have had some effect in speeding up the Wolfenden Report and the Sexual Offences Act of 1967. There you go. And what else? There was something. Oh yeah, there's good old President de Gaulle, having been costed and helped by us during the Second World War, telling us to bugger off if we wanted to join the common market. So there we are. Okay, the average house price in London was 2,470. It was probably about 250 quid in Manchester, but there you go. A Hellman was 854 quid.
It's a lot of money then.
Yearly salary £562. Loaf of bread 5p. Pint of milk 13p. Litre of fuel 5 pence. There you go. Neil Sedaka, Little Devil.
Oh, John Layton. Good heavens.
Oh, poor Marie was an awful voice, and all the girls thought he was lovely.
He played Ginger in the Biggles thing on
Biggles,
television.
that's right. He sang something called Wild Wind or something. You remember that? It was bloody awful it was. Yeah. Oh, and the Allisons are down there. Are you sure? What was happening? The farthing disappeared as well as the flat convent. First English football team this century to win the double.
Farewell, I'm not sure what to do. So long, au revoir. It's hard, but I'll go through. Are you sure you won't be sorry comes tomorrow? You won't want me back again to hold you tightly. Just stop and think. It's your decision now, for you're the one who went and broke the vow. You'll be sorry, wait and see. Spend your life in misery, wishing that you had returned to me. Goodbye, farewell, what is there to live for? Before you go, just think now, are you sure? Are you sure you won't be sorry comes tomorrow? You won't want me back again to hold you tightly. in my arms.
I saw that 1960s bubblegum stuff, but it was written by I can't remember who wrote it, but for the Allisons, who were supposed to be brothers, but they weren't, and then
It's
okay,
not like
that's
on the Everly Brothers.
we're nearly finished now, so I just say thank you for tuning
Yeah,
in.
it was great. That was great, Graham.
Yeah, great.
Graham.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Okey-dokey.
Thank you.
See you, folks.
Bye.
Cheers, Graham.